Grand plans for the day?
No, not really. Might mow my yard and go down the road and mow my mom's before the rain kicks in. It's supposed to come in around 7 or 8 o'clock our time.
Have to have goals, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Welcome to the GM's Corner, a Brewster Baseball Association podcast where we put general managers on the hot seat and try to steal all of their very best secrets. I, of course, will then edit those out so that only I get them. But that's just kind of the way that I roll. I am Ron Collins, general manager of the Yellow Springs Nine, and today I've got the general manager of the Jacksonville Hurricanes with me. He is my good friend, Gregg. He's such a good friend that I can't even say his name. It's Gregg Greathouse. Thank you for joining me today, Gregg.
Well, luckily, I've only been using this name, as part of the witness protection program for the last couple of years. So, I understand why it'd be hard to remember.
There you go. I can understand why you would need a witness
Yeah,
protection program. For
yeah.
those of you who don't know, Gregg and I have a bit of a background together. We worked together back when we were just, newbie, fresh out of college kids, played in an old rotisserie league way back in the days when you had to do all the stats by hand and when men were men and all that other good stuff. So I'm looking forward. It's been a while since I've had a chance to really sit down and talk with Gregg, though, and I've been really looking forward to that. How are things going back home in Indiana?
Going pretty good. A lot of rain here lately, but we got some pretty nice temperatures and stuff. So not as nice as what Arizona would be, but it's pretty nice by Indiana standards.
Is Columbus kind of a ghost town in the middle of this lockdown quarantine thing, or are things kind of still hopping a little bit?
It's a little eerie. It almost has the feeling of like a snow blizzard without the snow sort of thing. Just not too many people getting out unless they're getting groceries.
Yeah, for those who are not familiar, Columbus, Indiana, Gregg and I both lived in that area for quite some time, and it's about, a half hour south of Indianapolis, half hour, 45 minutes, town of about 40,000
Yep.
people. So it's got the
hmm
quaint small town but metropolitan feel because it has had a couple of Fortune 500 companies in it. So certainly I've been wondering how weird that downtown might be.
Yeah, it's been pretty quiet. Like all the the restaurants and bars, they'll try to do the carry out stuff from like 11 to 1 and 6 to 8, just to see if they can keep a few of their people working, sort of thing. But it's pretty quiet the time or two I've been there.
Well, for the rest of the Brewster Baseball Association and folks who don't know you, maybe we could start off. You could talk a little bit about what you do for a living and Columbus, Indiana, whatever you think about your hometown area there.
All right. Well, as far as what I do for a living, I'm with Cummins Incorporated. Used to be Cummins Engine Company. Been there for about 25 years. Was with the Department of Defense at Naval Avionics, Naval Air Warfare Center, whatever the names were at the time, for about 10 years prior to that. And, had a pretty illustrious non-professional athletic career, starting out after college with the infamous plague team of the mid 80s.
Yeah, pretty lousy athletes in government.
Yeah, and we exceeded expectations on a lot of those outings. But
We did.
it was fun.
For those of you who clearly would not know, Gregg Greathouse has this really sweet 17-foot jumper. But if you put him at 16 foot 9 inches or 17 foot 3 inches, he's pretty much out of it.
That's right. Well, I extended it to 19.9 there, plus or minus 3 inches once the 3-point shot came into effect. So it allowed me to run 3 feet less each time down the floor.
There you go. I
So.
enjoyed playing with you, Gregg, because you're the only guy who could catch my behind the back passes.
Well, yeah, I had good training with that. I had an ex-Marine drill sergeant that was our basketball coach in high school. And whenever he got mad, he would just throw it full speed at us, whether we were 20 feet away or 20 inches away, sort of thing. So
There you go.
it was fun.
Well, I miss those days of playing against Bruno and the Roger Gra team and all that
Yeah,
other good
yeah,
stuff. So
yeah.
um,
What I miss is the Bill Baldwin half court hook shot. I remember remember the first time that I joined the team, we broke that out and like he nailed it. like the crowd went wild.
Yeah. Yeah, well, Bill
But
was such a streamlined athlete that
yeah,
that hook shot was the only thing he was open for.
yeah, yeah,
Oh boy, you pretty much ruined me for the day now, Greg. That's all there is to it.
yeah,
All I can really remember is him on the bench telling people to go in and come out and whatever. So
yeah, yeah, yeah,
him and Federley.
yeah, yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about your sports fandom. What are your favorite teams? Basketball, football, baseball? What kind of order of how would you order your interest in different sports?
Yeah, so yeah, I've pretty much been indoctrinated by my dad, who in Southern Indiana, back in his day, you were either Cleveland Browns fan or a Chicago Bears fan because that was the only two teams that you could hear on the radio. And my dad was a diehard Cleveland Browns fan. So by inheritance, I became a diehard Cleveland Browns fan when we really had no reason to be a diehard Cleveland Browns fan because that was like in the early to mid 70s where they had a couple of like 3-11 and 4-12 seasons. And if you were still a Browns fan by the time Kozar came into the picture, you were definitely diehard because all the weak ones had already died off. And then it also, for some reason, he also liked the Cleveland Indians, and back in that time frame, that it made the Browns seem like that was the powerhouse portion of the season because there was a lot of Cleveland Indian times where we were trying to figure out if we were going to eclipse 100 losses or not, and things of that nature. So it was pretty fun to actually start seeing the Indians do well later on in life, but that was much later on. Basketball wise, it's always been the Pacers until at least till Larry Bird went into the NBA, and then I switched over to being a Celtics fan.
There you go. I believe I could be wrong. I lose track sometimes, but I believe that I am the individual who introduced you to Out of the Park. Is that a fair
You introduced me
assessment?
to a lot of things that be it good, bad, or indifferent there.
I'm not
But
sure we want to go any deeper than Out of the Park, though.
well, no, actually, I was going back to the rotisserie league days,
Oh,
like
there
even
you go.
before Out of the Park came along. I remember, you brought that up to me because Lisa, I think, was getting out of the league, and you needed somebody to fill the slot, and I came in and filled that slot. And the first thing I had to do was let go of Ryan Sandberg,
That
and
is true.
I don't think Lisa talked to me for like 3 or 4 weeks after that.
That is true. My beloved wife had the Lincoln Logs and handed them over to you.
Yep, yep.
Someone
But
had to
yeah,
release Rhino.
yeah,
That's all there
yeah.
was to
But
it.
that was definitely a different era for sure. We didn't have all the software type stuff. We were just cabbaging on to all the USA Today weekly reports and doing this, that, and the other with them, sort of thing. But yeah, as time progressed and the OOTP came out, yes, you were the one that introduced me to that as well.
Well,
And I
that's
was trying to remember the league. Was that like MBLS? Was that the league that we were in first with that?
that
I
could have
can't
been. Was
remember.
that the league that played every day?
Yeah, with Joe Cesario or whatever his
Yeah.
name was there. But yeah, he that was really the first OOTP league that I was ever in. But it was just, hey, play your game and get out. There wasn't really a whole lot of stuff that went on in between,
Yeah, that
right?
was a weird kind of league because you played one game every day against each
Yeah,
other, and
yeah, and it
GMs
was
could
a
play
real
their own
time.
games, and
Yeah, yeah, and
um,
it was the type of thing that it was a 1 day for 1 day thing. It wasn't like any type of accelerated
right.
thing where you could see how a 30-year career would turn out
Yeah,
very
and I
quickly.
think he even went across off season, right? I think the wintertime
Yeah,
actually was laid fallow. You'd still make
yeah,
trades and
right.
stuff and
Yeah,
things like that, but so that was kind of an
yeah,
interesting concept.
yeah, yeah. We lost a lot of people in the off season, the 1 or 2 years that we were in that, it
Yeah.
seemed.
Yeah.
Then the fall ball came along, and that was definitely a lot more high paced and high energy type league, at least from my perspective. You had people that really would stay in the game, and you could tell the personalities. Now Jerry, Bernelli, and you and I, we kind of knew each other before, right? And then there were a handful of others that just really jumped out. Shaw was one, among those for sure, right?
Oh yeah,
But
Stephen was one of the movers and shakers,
yes,
and of course the media whore himself.
yeah, that's no doubt there. And the team that I inherited there was Green Bay, which at the time, they had a lot of success in their history, from what I understood. Easy, it's the Easy Riders, right?
Right.
But the year before that I took them over, I think they were like 40 and 121 or something like that.
Yeah, they had seen better days.
Yeah. So they definitely had some rebuilding to do there, which was the fun part for me.
Yeah, well, and actually moving into the BBA, you came in through Beirut, and I'll talk about that in just a little bit. But then since you opened the Pandora's box around rebuild, you've kind of taken over a team in Jacksonville that is on a different swing of, Green Bay. When you took Green Bay over in the Fobble, it had already crumbled and gotten to the point where you were essentially ready to go do a rebuild. Jacksonville might be on its way downhill. You've got some interesting young players, so you're not completely bereft of talent, but you're clearly not. Jacksonville has been one of the royal teams for the past 10 to 15 years, and it's clearly on its way down. So you're almost kind of in a period where you've got to decide whether to do a total rebuild or to do a soft rebuild. You're picking up a team that's in a different place. Beyond that, it's also my understanding that this is a new jump back into OOTP after lying fallow for several versions. So it feels to me like, my guess is you've got a learning curve going on with catching back up to OOTP at the same time as you're taking a team that might need a rebuild or might not, at the same time as you're trying to get into a new culture within the BBA, which is similar but very different from the Fobbles. So maybe talk to me a little bit about what you're thinking about with Jacksonville and how you react to that. It feels like you got 3 degrees of freedom going on here.
Yeah. Hey, that's all right. That's why I like it. So, Jacksonville to me it's a lot harder of a scenario, like with Green Bay back in the Fobble sort of thing, right? There was no choice but the rebuild. There really wasn't any major players that were left, sort of thing. Whereas here you got the likes of Jose Zanuga and a handful of other guys that you sit there and it's like, hey, the pieces are already there, right? It's just how do you fill the the gaps and the holes with not having any salary available. So in the off season, this past off season, and some of the money freed up because there was some big money players that left that opened up some salary. But yet there was, as everybody probably runs into, it seems like that there was more gaps than what the salary could fill. So at that point, looking at what was in AA and AAA, I felt like that there was 3 or 4 players that were could very well have a decent impact, but I still feel like they weren't ready for this season.
Right.
So I felt like that I was going to have to kind of hold off and kind of lay and wait for a year and try to do what I can to keep the budget and the fan base from cratering until I can bring those guys up.
Yeah, and your first decision, I think, was around the first big decision was fundamentally around whether to re-sign David Nabarro or not. What thoughts were going through your head at that stage?
Yeah.
I mean, a potential Hall of Famer kind of guy that's a tough one.
That's a hard one too, because he was a fan favorite and everything. He'd been there for quite a while, from the way I understand it. But he had a $26 million salary, And for me to re-sign him, he was wanting to stay at that $26 million salary. He got hurt for, maybe a month of the season. So his numbers were down a little bit. But when he came back, just looking at him on his day-to-day performance, I just wasn't sure if he was going to bounce back 100% as what he had been in years past. So then I decided to go ahead and let him go back into free agency, thinking it's like, okay, well, if I could get him back in that $15 to $16 million range, I would probably go ahead and take a chance on it. But there was no way I felt like I could afford paying him $26 million. And in the process, and I think this is one of the things with the OTP version change versus, back in the fall, we had kind of an external, free agent signing process that was a little easier to track.
Right.
Right. But, I was sitting there and I had a $15 million offer for him or something close to that, and said, oh, yeah, hey, it looks like a pretty good deal. And then the next thing that I, noticed on the next simulation was, oh, hey, I like this other deal better. I'll see you. And, he was gone. And, in retrospect, at that point, I'm sitting there and it's like, oh, crap, what do I do? And it's like, of course, then I start looking around the trade boards and whatnot and end up getting Alejandro Rodriguez. And he actually, done pretty well so far. He's, hitting, above 330, almost 340. He's got 4 or 5 homers already. So he's really kind of outpaced Navarro of what he would have done so far this year.
Yeah.
Now, if Navarro gets hot, he could very well, do more damage in 2 weeks than, Rodriguez can do in 2 months. But, I feel like Rodriguez has really filled that void for us pretty well.
Obviously, I have a stake in Alejandro Rodriguez as he came from me.
Yeah.
And so I'm always happy to see one of my guys come in and do well. You're right. He's no way in heck is he going to be able to have the ceiling that Navarro has. But number one, he's really super cheap. And number two, he's just going to be a solid professional hitter, which is a pretty big deal for a team that's in a transition. I think I want to go back to your feeling on that free agent cycle, right? In the Fable, we had that, what I thought was a really fantastic off-season system that was basically eBay voting, right? We had a special app that somebody else had developed, and it just, you turned on and all players were available at all times, and you could make an offer to any player at any time. And if it remained the top offer over 24 hours, then you got that player. So every GM had the opportunity to go in at any time during the 24 hours and make a better offer, and then you would get the offer for whatever the second play. It's an eBay bidding thing. You get the player for whatever the second best offer was. But the value of that is that you knew you could, as soon as you made a bid on somebody, you knew you had the opportunity to come in 24 hours and check and make sure that that you were still in on the deal with somebody up to the ante, right?
Yeah.
Which was kind of nice, but also very harrowing because you get 15 minutes to your window close and you're watching to see, did my guy make it? Did my guy make it?
Right. Well, and everybody else is looking at that 15-minute window saying, hey, that guy's too cheap, that guy's too cheap, and they're going to bump him just so that the clock resets, and then you have to make another bid.
Right. Or you'd get guys like me who'd go in and bid police, right? I mean, I would look at a guy and I'd go, there's no way in hell that I want that guy, but I'm going to bid on him because I cannot manage, I cannot swallow the idea of this guy going for too low.
Yeah, right. And every once in a while you get stuck with somebody on a bump, but usually it was somebody that really wasn't going to really kill your team, sort of thing. Whereas, with the process here, there is a blind spot sort of thing you have to, kind of worry about, to where it's like, hey, you know what, if you're really interested in somebody, you really kind of have to, throw your best bet, or at least your semi-best bet out there, or offer out there, just so they know you're serious.
Yeah, and the fundamental difference is that in the Fable mindset, the players were mindless and did not have a say in the matter, right?
Right.
Whatever the highest bid was the highest bid, and that's what the players took. In our world here, it's more geared toward making the players act like real human beings, and so and since we sim in the off season a variable amount of days in a sim, right?
Right. Hmm.
If you're going to go 6 weeks in a sim, then fundamentally, if you're in the player's position, all the player sees is here's my three offers, and I go 6 weeks without any other, without any news. So I'm going to make a decision based on that 6 weeks.
Right.
And so if you are sometimes one of the worst places to be in is to be in late December in the lead, right? Because
Hmm.
somebody else is going to come in and make a bid in that next sim, and you don't really, you're kind of a sitting duck. You're kind of like being in the
Yep.
lead of a NASCAR race with a lap to go.
Right. Yeah, and you really don't want to bump your own bid up.
Right.
So yeah.
So there, that's a. I thought that was an interesting comment that you had there. The other piece is Navarro at
Yeah.
26 million may not be bad, but Navarro for 26 million for 6 years is another problem.
Yeah. Yeah. Now I do believe he ended up signing a 5-year deal. So,
Mhm.
but still there is not, and I don't remember if there was a team option toward the end of that or not. But it's type thing to me. Just seeing how he was struggling when he was coming back from injury, it made me nervous trying to sign a 5-year deal with any or a 6-year deal with any amount of serious money behind it because I just didn't have that much space and I had a lot of gaps to fill anyway.
Right. So your team lost Nabarro, which is a big deal. Then I think you kind of got the double whammy in the early part of the year when Chris Kelly went down with a injury. Talk to me about your thoughts on Chris Kelly. How does he play in your long-term goals at this stage? Just
Yeah, no, yeah, that's fine. And this is, part of kind of, what I tend to go with, right? I try to go with, defense, pitching, and then speed. And if I can find, some people that, have good on base percentages type thing, that's typically the type of thing I kind of build my team around. Now, the thing was with the team that I had here, Zuniga he was a, pretty sturdy, power hitter. I had Manuel Martinez and a couple other guys that actually had the ability to hit 30 home runs.
hmm
And so it's not that I can just, go all defense and all speed and on base like I had typically done in the past, but I did kind of want to stay with some strong pitching. The pitching that I had was really, Kelly was my main pitcher. I did have Don Harris, and then I also had Ramirez, Luis Ramirez, that were solid pitchers. I felt, but my number 4 and number 5 pitchers were really non-existent. Um, so when I had the chance to jump on Carlos Rodriguez, I thought, well, that would be a pretty nice 1-2 punch between Rodriguez and Kelly. But then Kelly struggled out of the gate. He really didn't. I think he went 0-3 and almost had like a 9 or 10 ERA in the 3 or 4 starts that he had before he got hurt. And when he went down, it kind of shot the that philosophy pretty hard there.
Now he went down. I don't have it in front of me. He went down, if I remember right, with more of like a inflammation thing than a tendon, not a
Yeah,
tommy thing or
yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
Is that
It said inflammation of the shoulder,
okay?
which I didn't know if that meant just translated inflammation of the ERA or not. But it's the type of thing that he was going to be out for 5 months. So
hmm
I don't know how OODP necessarily puts the injury with the time frame there, but yeah, he's pretty much out for the year.
Yeah, he's definitely pretty much out for the year. He might come back late in the year. If I remember right, he's got what, 1 or 2 years left on his contract, I think, too, if I remember
He's
right.
got 2. Yeah, he's got 2 more years. So I've got Rodriguez for 4. And I got Kelly for another 2. So it's like, I still got a chance to do that 1-2 punch
hmm
if that's the way I want to try to stay. And with, the 2 or 3 guys I have coming up, there is a chance that I may have about another 10 to 15 million opening up as I put the new guys in place of the higher price guys. But, I'm still not 100% sure which way we'll end up going next year.
Yeah, so you're kind of still in a waiting period then, is what I'm hearing you say. Is you're trying to decide what to do And if I'm reading between the cracks, then it says that perhaps Chris Kelly's recovery cycle might be one of the final dominoes that falls as to whether you need to do an actual full rebuild or whether you think you can keep the patchwork actually going.
Yeah,
Exactly.
it's the type thing. I plan on, bringing the guys up, and I want to let some of the bigger price guys go. It's the type of thing you sit there and it's like, you just really hope that it doesn't affect the record enough to where the fan base, really erodes. Because, like another thing with ODP that we really didn't have to worry a ton about in the earlier versions was the fan reaction when you let a popular person go. It didn't seem like that was quite as stringent back in the Fable days.
Yeah, it
But
wasn't as stringent. It also wasn't as important in concept of the finances, right?
right,
You mostly got money by winning, and it didn't
yes,
really
right,
matter what attendance did. So,
yeah, right, right. So that's the thing I'm trying to learn and pay attention to. Like I know our attendance at this point, I dropped the ticket prices by $1.50, just try to get the attendance up a little bit, and it went up a little, but when you start out 9 and 20, think we're 12 and 23 or something like that now. I forget. I'm trying not to look too often before supper, so I still have my appetite. But it's the type of thing that I see the attendance numbers going down again. I see the fan interest stuff going down a little bit again, although we're still in the mid 70s. But it's the type of thing. Bringing up a bunch of new talent, kind of starts feeling like not a 2 to 3 year rebuild, but more of a 3 to 5 year rebuild sort of thing. And I'm trying to keep it in that 2 to 3 year range if I can.
well, let me take a left turn here, and I'm going to put you into the traditional hot seat and do a lightning round of insightful and investigative questions on
All
Gregg
right.
Greathouse, so that everybody can know and love Greathouse. Gregg Greathouse. I could see. I still can't even say your name, Gregg. After all these years, my brain still cannot say your name.
Yep.
Um,
Well,
you,
I'll try to answer these lightning round questions with the speed of a sloth on Xanax if I can. So we'll see how it goes.
that would be just classic Gregg Greathouse.
It's true.
It's kind of like you're wind up for the 17-foot jumper.
That's right. Yep. Yep.
You came in through Beirut after a season or so there. You had them kind of back in fighting action. When you were approached to take Jacksonville, did you have any hesitation, or did you jump in right away?
Had a hesitation of about 5 minutes just due to especially with when you're trying to build up the minors and whatnot, there's a certain sentimental attachment that you have. But it's the type thing, and almost like going from a JV to varsity sort of thing. I felt like there would be more fun to be had, on the BBL level. So I pretty much made my decision within 15 minutes on Jacksonville.
Biggest mistake you made with Beirut?
Oh man, biggest mistake I made with Beirut. Uh, they're all kind of a distant memory now, but I would say that when I was trying to jump in that last season, I was with Beirut, trying to get a bunch of big name, pitchers lined up. And I went for a couple of them there that maybe I didn't need to quite do yet. I could have probably pulled somebody up from AAA.
There you go.
I forget the name of them though, because I've already pushed those names out of my brain to make room for the Jacksonville names.
Yeah, you got a pretty big learning curve to come up. I know you have
Yeah,
mentioned managing your team through a big spreadsheet, and you finally got your whole spreadsheet all kind of together here recently. Talk
yeah.
to me about it. Describe it. What do you track? What do you look for? How do you manage that?
Yeah, so mainly I just got one spreadsheet for the pitchers, a different spreadsheet for the hitters, and the thing I really try to track is salary and ages there. I try to also track the ratings and then the past season's performances. But the main thing I try to do is, and I'm just getting to the point where I feel like I almost have a handle on it, but you probably never really do. As far as like who's coming up the ranks, like right now, if I look at the catchers, on my list right now, I've got about 7 of them coming up through the ranks, and a lot of times you sit there and it's like, okay, which ones do I want to grab and give more of the at bats to, and this, that, and the other. So that's kind of what I do there. I got a couple of catchers in Double A that are doing fairly well in Delgado and Sharon. Do I bring both of them up and just take my AAA guys and push them out of the way, or do I try to put them on the trade block? That's the type of stuff I need to try to come to grips with here.
Alrighty. When will the Indiana Hoosiers be relevant in college basketball again?
Well, I was going to say that this tournament season was going to be their season, not to go out in the first round. So I guess that held true. So now that I have some credibility, I still think they're 3 years out, being able to get back to the finals again. I don't think they're going to be anywhere.
Not like 30 or 40 or.
Well, I
I mean, they came in 10th in a conference that can't even count to 14. So what's the?
Well, that's true. Yeah, but the thing of it is, you look at UK, they can't count past one because they never have a player that comes back. They always go out and declare themselves eligible for the draft.
But we don't care about UK. I mean, they don't even really exist as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I understand that. But it's the type of thing. I don't know if Archie's going to be the guy or not to get him there. Of course, you're talking to a diehard Bobby Knight fan, be it good, bad, or indifferent. Or if it's not Bobby running it, well, everybody else is second class.
If it's not Bobby running it, is it actually Indiana? Is that the
that's true. Yeah.
There you go. That's kind of like the context of me and Denny Crum. So I completely get that, except Denny was, of course, like 8 times the coach that Bobby Knight was. But
yeah. You remember the first year that I started working with you would have been back like November '86 is when I hired in at NAC, right? And IU won in '87. So the very first year that I knew you, IU was the victors, and it hasn't happened since.
Well, but see, that's the whole thing, is that Indiana has won after Louisville won every time. Louisville won in '80, Indiana won in '81. Louisville won in '86, Indiana won in '87. So Indiana can't do anything that Louisville doesn't do first.
That's true. Yeah, we just kind of copy the original, right?
There you go. See, what do you do in your free time? What do you like to do just hanging around?
Most of my time right now is spent chasing grandkids. I got 3 of them that live with me. Got 6 of them total. And then I also, try to ride my bicycle. And haven't done it yet this year. I was hoping to get there this weekend with the weather starting to turn nicer. But, try to, go out for, 20, 25 miles at a time.
Best moment in sports, playing, watching, participating, coaching, whatever strikes you, your most favorite moment in sports to date.
That's there's a lot of times there, but if I had to go back and say, hey, there's one, I would say it was when IU beat Michigan for the 3rd time in a row in '76 season and cap off their perfect season.
Outstanding. Well, you have successfully navigated the hardcore investigative lightning round, so I appreciate you taking the time on that.
All right.
It is traditional that I allow you to turn the tables. Listen to me, allow you to, like I've been dictatorial here.
Mm-hmm.
You are free to put me in the hot corner and ask any questions you would like.
All right. If you were going to put a person into the OOTP game that was some type of mimicking of Ryan Sandberg, what would their name be?
What would their name be? Well, I would have to actually just name them Ryan Sandberg. Otherwise, my wife would divorce me.
See, I didn't know if you'd have to go with Sign Randberg or, something like that nature. Or...
No. You don't mess with the rhino. That's all there is to it, man.
So would it be Ryan Lincoln Sandberg then?
Well, there you go. That could work out. If Bridget had been a son, he was going to be Ryan Lincoln. So.
Well, there you go. That makes sense.
So that's my answer, and I'm sticking to it. If people have read the post I did on my little award, they understand a little bit about my wife's form of sarcasm and cynicism, and know that she is not one to be trifled with.
Then probably my other question would be, what was your favorite all-time edition of the Circuit Breaker?
Oh my. You know,
I don't know how many people actually know what the background on the Circuit Breaker or not, but
no, I think we're talking in an audience of two at this point. The
hey,
circuit breaker was the circuit
that
breaker was
doubles that doubles the staff of either the dugout dirt or the Circuit Breaker staff. Then
There you go. The circuit breaker was the official team newsletter of my RC Circus, which was my rotisserie league team back in the early days that Greg and I were talking about. Um, I don't know that I have a favorite edition of the circuit breaker, but I do have a favorite edition of what was it the collectors, the TNG
oh yeah,
collectors when they
TNG
ragged on
collectors.
Bruno so hard. Bruno had made a rip-off trade of like Marquise Grissom for somebody, because he was always doing that shit. And
Well, especially to the new owner of the league, it's like, oh hey, welcome to the new owner. Oh hey, yeah, get
yeah, there you
raked over
go.
the.
And so they Bruno did that, and they wrote this. I can still see it in my head, with the little TNG collectors
Yeah,
logo on it. And they just wrote this scathing, sarcastic thing. That was fun.
yeah, yeah,
Anyway.
no doubt, no doubt. Yeah, I can't remember the details about it, but there was one article. Well, you did many articles, but there was one article around Andre Dawson. You kept calling him the Messiah,
Oh yes,
right?
I did
Picked him
that.
up
So
that one year where he single-handedly kept the club Cubs out of a AAA in the majors by hitting
exactly.
what, like 49 homers and 150 ribbies or something like that.
Yeah, and I had traded Phil Yeager and his brother Dave, Bob Nepper for Dawson the year, the off season before. So, and they thought they were getting a Cy Young Award pitcher, and I
Yeah,
got an
yeah,
MVP guy. So
yeah.
yeah, I started calling him the Messiah just because poor Phil Yeager. I'd meet him at the bar to watch the games, and he would just
Yeah, yeah. I'm sure Phil took it well.
yes, he did. As well as Phil can take anything. So
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
yeah, I appreciate your time here today. We need to get Bruno into the league. That's just all there is to it. We need to find a way. We need to bombard him and get him to apply into the amoeba and see if we can make that happen. So
Yeah, yeah, we'll
that would
put
be
that on
your
our list.
that would be your
Okay.
homework from
All
this
right.
point going forward is
Yeah.
to bombard Bruno and get him into the BBA.
All right. I can do that.
There you go. Well, I appreciate your time here today, Greg. It's been a whole lot of fun, and
Oh yeah.
good luck with your Jacksonville Hurricanes and decisions and all that other good stuff. I'm looking forward to continuing to riff throughout the years here.
All right. Sounds good. You have a good one.
The Brewster Baseball Association is an out-of-the-park baseball league commissionered by Mr. America himself, Matt Rechtenwald, and competed in by an amazing group of outstanding general managers. Check us out at montybrewster.net. You have been listening to the GM's Corner, a podcast where we put BBA GMs on the hot seat. Music is Cool Piano by Tigerius and is used under Creative Commons Attribution License. See you next time. Until then, have fun, be safe, and always remember that even a boring team news is worth 2 points.